Okay, so I'll just take it that you are able to follow and you don't have any doubts. Fine. So then, uh, fine, we will then get started with the demo part. Uh, so we are keeping the Tuesday slot for the interaction, and whenever there is a holiday, we will try to use the Monday slot. But for example, on 26th January, so we have a slot on 26th January. Any of you have a problem in attending interaction session on that day, you can let me know now. If you have a problem, we will put it on Monday. So yeah. So anyone having a problem, just tell now for 26th January. Okay, so we will continue with Tuesday slot on that week also. So then I'm giving it to the TH. So Vishal, Rajdeep, who wants to start?
So, hello everyone. This is Rajdeep. So, sir, I think I would start.
Sure.
Am I
Go
audible
ahead.
to everyone?
Yes, Rajdeep, you're audible.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, hello everyone. Today we would be introducing to you some initial packages and libraries, some initial tools, like sir has already told you, that you will be needing in order to code your stuff in NLP. So I would share my screen and then we will start the discussion. How do I share the screen?
Okay, in case you are doing it for the first time, so you have the share content button on, you would see some sort of a
Open.
screen sign and an
Oh, okay,
arrow.
okay. Yes, 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 I got it. Yes, so I have shared. Is it visible?
Yes, Rajdeep.
Okay. So yes, so we have created a basic tutorial to start off with. So first of all, we will discuss about the tools. Our plan is to discuss about the tools and the libraries. And then we will discuss about the tasks which we have in mind. And then about the logistics of team formation and everything. Okay. So in NLP, everything starts with data. You have to read data and you have to extract some information out of it, and you have to make a machine understand your language or understand or take inferences out of it. So let's start with some data. So for that, the first package that is very famous, that is the Natural Language Toolkit. So short form is NLTK. So you have to import like this. So because I have run the cells, that's why it is coming like this. I will rerun every cell so that you are aware. Okay, I will first disconnect and I will again connect. Um, yeah.
So Rajdeep is using Colab. I suppose all of you know Colab uh, and the Jupyter notebooks. And I don't know if you want us to also share it with you in case right now. If you think that will be helpful, we can also do that. So we can share some link so that you can also try to run on your end.
Oh, sure. I can share the link straight away.
Hmm. But only if that helps. Otherwise.
With viewer rights would be fine? I guess no. I think they have to be edited in order to run the cells.
No, they can create a copy. So share it with viewer rights, and
Okay.
there is an option to create a copy.
All right.
Okay, running on your own is optional. We are not telling you to run it, but in case some of you really want to do it and see yourself, you can do that. That's why we have shared this link.
Sure. So first you have to import the package by the statement, which is import NLTK. And then from this package, we are downloading the Brown corpus. So the Brown corpus is one of the first modern computer readable general corpora, and it is very famous. Okay, so let's run this cell and it will just download the things. Okay, then from this corpus, we import Brown for our work. And then first we start off with printing some of the words which are there. So as you can see, it will print a list. So let me run the cell. So once we run the cell, okay, sorry, I have to run it first. So you can create cells. So how do you do it? So every time you just come to the edge of a particular section, you will see that there are two options coming, code and text. So whenever you create your own collab, there you can create two types of cells. So if you create a code cell, then you can insert your own code here. And if you create a text cell, then you can write whatever you want to write so that it is understandable. Okay, I'm deleting this for the time being. Okay, so once the corpus has been loaded, now if we simply print it, then you will, by print brown.words, you will get a list of words which are there in the corpus. And this tells you, the final figure tells you the total length of the corpus, I mean the vocabulary of the corpus. And then these are some of the sentences. You can simply print by brown.sense. This, I'm not rerunning this. Okay, and then what are the different IDs? So there are different files. So Brown again is a corpus of files. So there are different files under Brown corpus. So in order to get a list of all the IDs, you can just run like this. So brown.file IDs. And if you just want to see the first 100 IDs starting from the beginning, then this is the code. If you remove this, it will show you all the IDs.
So Rajdeep, we can pause. So whenever we are telling, there may be things that we are assuming and you do not know. In that case, somebody should raise hand or ask questions. Okay, otherwise we will continue. Sure, Rajdeep, continue.
Okay, so is anyone uncomfortable with lists in Python, basic lists? How do we do indexing in lists? If there is any issue, please let me know so that I will go slower and I will try to explain that as well. So by colon 100, you are basically instructing the compiler that you start from the beginning and go till 100. Do not show me the entire list of all the IDs. You just show me the first 100 IDs. So for this is the command. Okay, so these are just experimental things. Okay, acha. Then now suppose you want to read the text of a particular file ID. So suppose CB03. Let us change it to CB03. Okay. Now you want to check the raw files. Okay. So you can call like brown.raw and then you give the ID, whichever ID you want to check, and then you strip the file. You strip the file means you remove the spaces. Okay, and then you show the first 1,000 words. Okay, again it will be a list. From the list you show the first 1,000 words. So if you run this, then you will see this output, right? So as you can see that there are other things apart from the words. So the actual sentence would be, a good man departs, goodbye, Mr. Sam. Okay, so this is the actual sentence, but what are the extra information? So these are basically the pause tags, the part of speech tags, which are also associated and which are available in the raw corpus, the raw files under the Brown corpus. Okay, we will come to the part of speech tags and all that later. Okay, now that you have,
Sir.
yeah.
Sir, what is a raw file?
Raw file, the basic text files actually, the text files, the pre-processed files basically.
Okay.
Under Brown corpus, these are the pre-processed files. Had it not been pre-processed, then you would not have seen all these labels. AT, so JJ stands for adjective, like that. NN stands for noun. Okay.
And what is the CB03?
These are the IDs. These are the file IDs. So Brown is a huge corpus. Under this corpus, there are different files, and every file has got a name, the file name basically. Okay. So this is the file ID. Now, if you want to read some other file, you can just put the ID there and you can read it. So these are some dummy examples. Now you can try out with any other corpus and there will be similar things. Okay, other corpus also will have different file names, different IDs and all that. Okay, that you have to check that what are the exact IDs. So these are the codes which will help you to understand what are the IDs, so that then you can pinpoint on a particular file by its ID and then you can read its content. Okay, and these are the pre-processed raw files. Okay, had it not been pre-processed, it would have been simply the text. A good man departs. Goodbye, Mr. Sam. Okay. Okay. So after this, now we start doing something with the text. Now, why are all these steps required? So the first part, I mean, just reading the corpus and checking what the content is. This is just for your understanding whether the data is suitable for your actual problem that you are dealing with. Now, there are different problems in machine learning in general and in NLP. For example, text classification. So suppose there are different labels and you have been given a piece of text. Now you have to classify that text into one of the n labels, for example. Now, what you have to do is you have the raw text. Now the computer can't understand the raw text. You have to extract some features from that text so that the features can be supplied to the model, and then the model will learn something out of the text. It will try to infer some statistics from the text, which will help in the classification process. Okay, this is just one example. There are other tasks, like regression is one of the tasks. Then natural language generation is another task, dialogue generation, summarization. There are different tasks. Okay, so let's go with the classification for now, because that will be the easiest to understand. So for a given machine learning task, you have to extract out the features. So for extracting the features, these are some of the basic steps. Okay, so we will start with tokenization. So tokenization has mainly two parts. Mainly, so if you can see, the sentence tokenization is to split the entire string into sentences. So string here means it can be the entire Wikipedia article. Okay, so the entire content can be put in one string in Python. So in order to split the entire content into sentences, there is a sentence tokenizer. And then in order to split up the content into words, there is this word tokenizer. Okay. So now we will take another corpus, let us say. So previously we worked with the Brown corpus. Now let us take another corpus, the web text corpus. Okay. Now if you check under the web text corpus, these are the file IDs. See, they are no longer CB0, CB1. Now they have some names. So these are some names like Firefox.txt, Grail.txt, and all that. So let us say that we want to work with the singles file under the web text corpus. Fine. So this code, this code will basically try to print out the first 10 sentences under the singles.txt. And how am I reading this? So for I line in enumerate will basically iterate over all the lines in the files. Okay, and this is how you read the file. Webtext.raw. Had it been Brown, then it would have been brown.raw, like that. Webtext.raw, and then you give the ID, right? Then the entire content is has already come in a list, and that you split with a /n. So that means had you not split up with the /n, then all the lines would have come in the same line. Okay. Now you split all the content with a /n, so every line is now separated, and your list is prepared. Okay. So it will form a Python list, which and each each content of that list will be a complete sentence. Okay. Now we are just printing the first 10 sentences from this corpus. So that's why this line, if I greater than 10, then break. You can print out all the sentences. So this is just your data reading and data processing, all that. Okay. So now if you want to pinpoint on a particular line, okay, for example, let us say that we only care about line number 8, okay, or line number 9, whatever. So if you want to pinpoint, then you have to do the same thing, webtext.draw singles.txt. That will this will dot split. This will give you the final list of sentences, and from there you index the list. Okay, so by 8 we will only print single number 8. Okay, this will not work because I have to rerun them. I will just run. Right. So if you see that it is only pointing at this one, are you alone? Okay. Now that we have this sentence, let us split it. So first we will sentence tokenize. So this line is not, I think, a single line because it contains a question mark here, right? So maybe we could explore new beginnings and all that. So let's try to first we import send tokenize and word tokenize, and then let's try to sentence tokenize it. Okay, so if you read this entire sentence, are you alone or lost in a R-ship 2 with no hope in sight? Okay, so this is the first sentence. Then maybe we could explore new beginnings together. There's a second sentence like this. So this entire sentence has been, this entire text has been split up into its constituent sentences, right? And last sentences, you won't be disappointed. So that's it. You won't be disappointed. Okay. So this is the role of sentence tokenizing. Now we have to, okay, just a minute. Okay, previously it was not, so you can ignore this part. It was actually, I deliberately kept this because initially it was giving an error, and I wanted to show you that if something is not loaded. So initially this library punkt, punkt, this was not loaded. This was not downloaded in the runtime. So this line would have failed. This line, the sentence tokenize would not have worked. So it will throw you some error, and from the error you have to understand what needs to be done. So it will clearly tell you that you have to download and this punkt thing, and you have to write this code. So that's why I kept it 2 times. Okay, so then you download it and then this will run fine. Okay, but because I did not change the runtime, so that's why it worked fine in the first instance itself. Otherwise you have to look for what is the error and then you have to resolve it. Okay, so now let's move on to the word tokenizer. So once your sentences are there, so these are your 4 sentences. Now you can tokenize the sentences into its constituent words. So this is the simple example. Word tokenize sent. So for every sent which is there in this sent tokenize, you word tokenize the sentence. Okay, so if you run this, it will work. Now, in many applications, you do not actually require capitalized words. Okay. Now, capitalized words give you some hint about which words are being put emphasis upon. The reader or the writer might be putting emphasis on some of the words, and that's why. And that is the reason why he or she is making that word capitalized. But in many applications, this understanding the tone of what the speaker is trying to say from what is written is not absolutely required. So you can lowercase. Okay, so for lowering the word, there's the simple part word dot lower. So for every sentence, you word tokenize the sentence, and for every word in that list, you lower the word. Okay, so this is how you do it. So if you compare with the above cell, then you can see that are you alone or these all these now have been lowercase. Fine. Okay, and again now there's again word tokenize. If you do not want to split up the text into sentences, you just want to split the text directly into words, then you can do this directly. Okay, you can take the entire text. This actually consisted of 4 sentences. You can take the entire text, that is single underscore number 8, and then you can word tokenize, and it will give you all the words in the entire text. Okay, now the question is that does it always work? So to answer it, in majority of the applications, it will actually work. But if your text is not standard text, for example, if you are reading Twitter data, okay, where there will be non-ASCII characters as well. There will be some gibberish looking text as well. Okay, then you will have to look for specific applications, or you might have to train your own models in order to properly tokenize those things. Okay, so if you see, for example, under the same file, this under web text corpus and the singles.txt, the ninth sentence, if you see the ninth sentence, what was the ninth sentence? So this is the ninth sentence. Amiable 43 years old gentleman with European background, 170 centimeter, medium build, employed, never married, no children, and full stop. Enjoys sports, music, cafe, beach, and sea, full stop. Then seeks an honest, attractive lady with a European and whatever. So this is the start of the third sentence. Seeks and enjoys. This is the start of the second sentence. Okay, so if you sentence tokenize this entire text, then it should come like that. But if you do it, then it will see that it fails. So it fails. Why? Because it is considering this y dot o dot as the end of this sentence. Okay, this year old, it is not able to properly identify that this entire thing is a continuation. Up till no children is a continuation. Okay, and then again, this if you see here, enjoy sports, music, cafe, and see. So and see, it is actually trying to consider this and see as different abbreviations. Okay, it is not regarding this and see full stop. Okay, it is considering like Mr. So after Mr. MR, you add a full stop, right? So it is trying to it has inferred that it is similar to that Mr., Mrs. and all that, and it is not exactly the end of a sentence. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it depends upon your application and the data that you are trying to read. Okay, it will not always work according to your expectations. In those cases, you will have to look for something else. Okay. Till here, are there any questions on tokenization? Okay, I will then move to the next section. Next section is stop words. Now, again, in many applications, you have been given the text. Okay, but in order to understand, so for the text classification, example for our case, okay, there might be 2-3 different labels, or there might be n different labels that you have to classify your text with. Now, for example, I'm telling you that the two classes are sports and movies. Okay. Now suppose I give you a sentence that I will be playing football evening. Okay. If this is one sentence, now what do you think? What should it be classified into? It will not go into movies, right? It will go into sports. Now, if you give, if I give you another sentence, like I will be playing Tare Zameen Par on my video cassette. Okay. Now this is another sentence. Now, in both the sentences, I will be or I would be, these things are common, right? But are they contributing towards the classification? You can understand, like from the context of the first sentence, I will be playing football. So this shows me that this should be classified as sports. But I will be playing Tare Zameen Par, that means it is the name of a movie, okay? Or I will be playing a movie on my laptop. Suppose there is a sentence, then this should be classified into the class called movies, right? But in both the sentences, I will be is common. It is not exactly contributing towards the actual class of the sentence. And in majority of the cases, these words are called the stop words. Okay, like I am, all the determiners, a and the, okay, mainly the verbs, will be, would be, all these things. These are not exactly giving you the context with respect to the labels. These are just for, you know, the syntactic the syntactic correctness of the sentence. Okay, so in many applications, in order to reduce the size of your feature vector, you are required to remove these stop words. These are called the stop words. You have to remove them so that your feature vector size reduces. Okay, ultimately it will have the same effect because those words are not going to contribute for your task. So first we will take a look at what are the stop words in English. and then we will see that how to remove them. Okay, so you have to use nltk.download stop words. You download them, import them in your runtime, and if you print it, then these are all the stop words: I, me, myself, our, ours, ourselves, you are, you have, and all this. Okay, now so let us take a look at the sentence 8. So what was sentence 8? So I'm moving up a bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so this was the sentence. Are you alone or lost? I will just copy this. Right. So if you see that this was your original sentence, okay, this is your original sentence, and then what we do, so we lower all the words, we word tokenize and lower all the words in the sentence, okay, and then we print this. So the words are tokenized as well as lowered, fine, and this was the original sentence. Now what we are doing, that we are printing all the words which are there in this list, but which are not under stop words en. So what was stop words en? This is the list of all the stop words in English. So if the word is not under your stop words list, then you print it. So you can see that R is gone, U is gone, alone has came, okay, or is gone, lost, again it came, okay, then in is gone. So many words will go away. The stop words will go away. So this is how you remove the stop words, okay. And then you also might have to remove the punctuations, because again they are not going to make much difference. However, having said that, some of the punctuations are important given your application. For example, the question mark or the exclamation sign. So for sentiment analysis tasks, these punctuations are going to make some amount of difference. If there is an exclamation that I'm ecstatic, and it is followed by an exclamation sign, then it is showing that your sentiment is actually very what should I say, very intense. Okay, but if the exclamation sign is not there, then you would understand that okay, it is just a sentiment that he is happy. But if the exclamation sign would have been there, it would have been made much more impact. Okay, so given your applications, some of the punctuation marks will be important, but in majority of the cases, the punctuation marks are not going to give you any help. So how do you remove this? Again, you do a similar thing. So this is the the package from string. You import punctuation. Okay, and if we simply print out the punctuations, then if you see that this is a list of all the punctuations. Okay, and what is its class? The class is string. This will print you the entire string. And if you just do this, the set of punctuation. So if you take any string, okay. So if you take, for example, a string called NLP, right? So this is a string. And then if you do set of A, that means set of NLP, you see it must return NLNP in a list. Sorry, in a set. Okay. So you take any string and it will return you, and you just apply the set operation. It will return all the characters. So in this case, it will return all the individual. It will return a set of all the punctuation marks. Now you now there is a list of stop words, okay, and there is a set of punctuation marks which we want to remove from our sentences. So what do? We will use a similar approach, but first we will union. So we cannot union a list and a set. Union is a set operation. So if you run this, then it will throw some error. Yes. So name stop words en is not defined, right? So where is stop words en? So I deliberately kept this so that I can show you that how to read the errors. So now that this is not defined, you have to define it. Stop words en is the set of all the stop words. Okay. So you define this, and stop words is not defined. Oh, just a minute. Actually, I have to run all this. So now you can see that this is run properly. So first you define stop words en, okay, which will give you the list of all the stop words which you convert into a set. Then you make a union of this set with the set of punctuations, okay, and then you just print stop words en without punct. So this is the list of all the stop words plus the punctuation marks. And then what you do, initially what we had done. So we had printed all the words in this tokenized and lowered sentence if it was not a part of stop words. Now we will simply use this list, right? So it will, now you can see, you can compare the two sentences. See, the comma is gone, question mark is gone, okay? And there will be other things like this question mark is gone. Okay, so yeah, so this is how you remove the things. Having said that, there will be some words, for example, won't, which is a mispronounced words. So what I'm saying is this, suppose this is the word. Okay, this actually is not going to make any sense. Had it been won't, okay, then it would have made some sense and it would have been already removed. But this is a misspelling, which is not there in any of the list. So in those cases, you have to deal with them separately. So they might not be handled with your stop words removal or punctuation mark removal. If you want to remove those words as well, then you have to do some manual inspection and you have to write some other pieces of code accordingly. Okay. Okay, and the final, I will stop with stemming and lemmatization. I will just introduce what we mean by that. Again, similar. This is just in order to reduce your feature vector size. Okay, so suppose I give you a sentence that I will be playing football and I will play football. Okay, again, ultimately what I'm doing is I'm going to play football. So I'm saying that something, whatever I'm saying is something related to sports, right? But is playing and play. These two are different senses of the same word, right? One is in the continuous sense, one is the present sense. I will play football, like that. Okay, but this is again not going to help you in the actual classification process. The word that matters is play. Okay, so stemming and lemmatization are for these purposes. Okay, so if you stemming is actually trying to get you to the root word. Okay, so if you give this walking, walks, and walked, and if you use this as a Potter stemmer is a very famous algorithm. Okay, Potter's algorithm for the stemming purpose. Okay, and usually it is the most common thing to use in our code. So if we just simply load the Potter stemmer, we create an instance of this, and then we use Potter.stem word for all the words. So if you see that walking has been reduced to walk, walks has been reduced to walk, and walked again has been reduced to walk. Okay, so this is the purpose of stemming. Now coming on to the lemmatization part. So lemmatization, ideally, if you give a sentence as input, then without the pause tags, lemmatization does not work fully. Okay, without the information of the part of speech tagging. And lemmatization is actually is much more complex than stemming. It's a complex concept than stemming. So if you see that if we run this, it's a similar thing like from NLTK you import the WordNet lemmatizer. Okay, it will try to lemmatize, and then from walking it keeps us walking, but walks. So walk and walks. Okay, so these are called the inflections. Okay, there are two main things. One is called derivation. For example, from drive, you derive the word driver. Okay, but you want to make a plural of a word. For example, walk. So they walk, but he walks. Okay, so if you want to change between singular, plural, and different senses like that, then these are called the inflections. So without the information of the actual POS tagging, okay, WordNet lemmatizer will mainly handle these cases. Okay, it is not going to reduce walking into walk. However, it reduces walks, which is an inflection, into walk. Then walked is kept as walked. So the original senses of the verb. So this is like walking, continuous tense, walked, past tense. Okay, but walks and walk both are present tense. Okay, But given that they are in the same tense, and walks is actually, kind of plural singular form, an inflection of the word, the actual word walk, it will be reduced to walk. Okay, but the other two words are not reduced. So for this thing, we have to write our own codes, okay, where we have to insert the POS tagging information as well. We will not go into details of POS tagging, but I have just kept the code here for you to play around with. So this will just create. So for example, he is walking to school, okay, and if you pause tag it, then he is the what pronoun or preposition? I forgot. Sorry. Okay, he is, okay, is verb, walking again verb in the continuous sense. Okay, then to is to, school is noun. Okay, so this is how you get the POS tags, and then you combine this information. You basically supply this information to the limitizer. Okay, so so if you supply this information, this POS tag information to the limitizer, then you see the difference that he is walking to school. Now if you see, this walking has been converted to walk. Previously it was not the case. Okay, so WordNet limitizer by default will not work if you are not supplying the POS tag information of the constituent words. The moment you supply them, then it will work properly. So he is has been converted to its base word be. Okay, be, being, is, these are all the different inflections of the word be. Okay, walking has been reduced to walk, to is to, and school is school. Okay, so this is how you make use of stemming and lemmatization for reducing your feature vectors. Now there might be a question that if stemming is there, then why lemmatization? And if lemmatization is there, then why stemming? Because lemmatization is an you can say that a more complex version of stemming. Okay, so lemmatization in general is a much more complex, and it is also application dependent. Okay, it is very difficult to address all the all your requirements by a lematizer. Okay, and in many of your applications, you might not even use a code as heavy as lemmatization. Stemming might be sufficient for your purpose. So stemming is also very quick to implement with your data. Okay, for example, let us say that you are building a search engine. Okay, now your query contains the word similarly. Suppose your query contains the word playing. Okay, and your actual text contains the word play. Right now, if both the things are stemmed into play, I'm not talking about lemmatization. If both the things are stemmed into play, then the query and the content will match, and it will solve your purpose. Ideally, what would you do? If a text contains the word playing, and if your query is something related with playing, suppose then you would ideally return that particular text to the user, right? So for that, you may not be requiring to match the exact sense of the word, like play with playing. Just checking whether both the words, both the texts, the query as well as the content, both content play or not, that will be sufficient. So in those cases, you might go ahead with stemming itself. Lemmatization is not required, but lemmatization again has its requirement in many of the applications that we will have to gain our experience with as we move ahead. Okay, so yeah, so this is the example, and then we can create our own function where we can combine all this, and finally, if we if we run the same sentence number 8, you are alone, lost in a ship, and all that, then it will. Okay, this is not defined. Okay, just a minute. So you run this. Okay, fair enough. So I might have missed one line here somewhere. Acha, the name stop list combined is not defined. Okay, I might have missed some sentence in between. Anyway, the thing is that once you have defined your code, I mean, once you have also supplied your post tag information, you create your own function and supply the post tag information to the WordNet limitizer, and then your function is ready, which you can apply on that sentence 8 that we have been looking till now. Okay, so had it run properly, it would have shown you the original sentence you can see, and then it would have shown you the lemmatized version of the tokenized text. Okay, so yes, so I would correct this part, but yes, I would stop with this, and now I think Vishal will tell you about the other packages. So Vishal, over to you. Acha, if you have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, Vishal, please take care.
Thanks, Rajdeep.
Okay, should I stop sharing?
Yeah, if you can stop sharing. I will.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, let me know if you are able to hear me and share my see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. So till now, what you saw is basically how to extract different features from texts using the NLTK toolkit. Now, as you can understand, like there are so many features that have been built over the past, and you can sit and go through these features one by one and extract them using NLTK. Now, what happens is when you are working towards building an application, it becomes a bit difficult to manage all these things individually. So there are many tools in Python that like speeds up these processes by building pipelines which takes care of all these things. So suppose you have to read a file and then do some processing. So for that, you might need to first understand the structure of the file, then do the processing based on what the structure is. And this becomes very dependent to the style of the data you have or the format of the file you have. So to speed these things up, and this is great about Python, that there are like almost packages for all the different types of data sets you can find. So today I will be talking about three packages for three different tasks that you might find useful. And they become they are very handy in many contexts in many different applications of machine learning. So the first package is called Pandas. So what Pandas does is it reads tabular data, and you can apply various data manipulation algorithms to the rows or columns of these data sets. And why tabular data? If you see in modern machine learning, many of the data sets that appear for various tasks are usually tabular in structure. What does this mean is for each data point, you will have certain features, and you will have, say, some targets that you want to classify or some targets that you want to predict or learn. So all these can be usually represented in an Excel file, if you can imagine. And they are stored usually in a file format called .csv or .tsv. So first you need to, okay, now we'll see an example. So first you need to import the package as import pandas as PD. Once you do that, we'll download a dataset from this URL. So this is a dataset for disaster tweets. So what this dataset has is there are sentences or tweets in each row of the Excel file. And for each of these tweets, there is a label as 1 or 0. And this label identifies whether the tweet involved or discusses about certain disaster that is happening. So you can imagine this is helpful in many scenarios when you are reading a Twitter feed and you are trying to figure out if there is something happening in some region of the world. Okay, so once you download this repository, there is a CSV file called train.csv in the data folder, and this is how it looks. So it has few columns: ID, keyword, location, next, and target. And this is the tabular structure I am talking about. So each of the rows after the first row gives you a sample of this data set, and each of the columns are certain features. So like the first column is ID, then there are keywords, then there is the location of the tweet, where the user tweeted from, then there is the actual text of the tweet, and there is the target. So you can easily view these files using Excel also. So I will show you a few examples. So here you can see, like, these are the keywords. So the keywords are mainly associated with these tweets that appear, that the Twitter feed provides, and also you can use these keywords to identify whether it is a disaster tweet or not. But the main goal here is to use this text field to predict. So like here the example is like wholesale markets ablaze with some links. So this says about a market that has gone up on fire. So the label is 1, but there can be some other tweets which may use the label may use the word ablaze, like crying out for more, said me ablaze. So this is not a label 0. So you can see there are, so this is not a trivial task where you can use some words just to predict. So you might need to consider the context also. All right. So now going back to the code. So now you want to read this CSV file, this tabular file, into Python. So you do that by simply using pd.readcsv. So pd is the package you imported, pandas, and it has a function called readcsv. So if you do that, it will create an object called data frame, and you can view this data frame or manipulate the data in any way with this data frame. So just to see the first few rows, you can do train data.head. It will show you the columns that are there in the file, and also it will give you some example of the rows. Right. Now there are few functions that you can use so these are they are by default in the pandas data frame object, and there are some APIs that the library gives to you. You can use those to implement any operation you want on this data frames. So the first attribute that this package has is called dataframe.shape. So this will give you what is the size of the table or the dataset that you loaded. So there are 7613 rows and 5 fields or columns. So as you can see, these are the 5 fields: ID, keyword, location, text, and target. Now there are many datasets which will have more than one numerical column. So in this case, only the target is numerical column, but the others are not. So these are textual fields. And ID is not really a number, so this is just identifying self-incrementing keyword. So this is not any useful feature. So we'll just look at this target column and we'll ask it to describe. So what this describe does is it gives you the basic stats for a particular feature, that a particular numerical feature. So here you can see the count is basically how many rows are there, and after that you can see the mean. So since this is a binary column, you can estimate from here that 42% or 43% of the rows are 1 and rest of them are 0. So this is the split of the data. You can also see the standard deviation, mean, and various quantile values. So these are useful in other numerical cases. Since this is just a label, only mean is here. Mean here is useful to get an estimate of what is the split of the data. Okay, now another function you have is called sample. So we'll use this to select randomly 500 samples from the dataset and only use this to do some analysis. And it is often useful to start with a few samples to understand what is the structure of the data, what kind of text are coming in, before you go on to build a fully fledged model with the whole dataset. Okay, we will confirm that the shape is now 500,5 because we selected 500 rows. Then we can select. So next, using this LOC access protocol, what you can do is you can take any data frame and filter it by some condition. So our condition here is train data target equals 1. So if you remember, the target column was the label of the instances. So here what we are doing, we are saying select those rows which has its target equals 1. So this inner comparison will give you an array of trues or false based on the comparison. And then you do a loc accessor. So this loc accessor will return you only those arrays which has this field as 1. So you can split the data frame to positive and negative based on 2 comparisons, and we can see what is the split of the data from there among those 500 rows. So you can see that there are 219 positive cases and 281 negative cases in this random sample. Okay, so this basically gave you some idea about how to use data frames and how to load CSV CSV or TSV file type data into Python as data frame objects. So once you have that, you might want to do some processing on the text. So earlier you saw that NLTK gives you lots of tools on how to extract various features, but NLTK can become a bit slow towards development when you are trying to get a lot of features from the text, but you have to go like individually find out which tools to download from NLTK and to run that on the text. So there is a package called Spacie. What it does is it basically combines all these tools that are there in NLTK into a single package. And not only the NLTK packages, it also adds many other modern toolkits and algorithms for text processing into this single package. So what you can do with Spacie, I'll show you. So Spacie runs in a pipeline fashion, and it doesn't ask you to, so it usually doesn't ask you to give any particular argument on what you want to run. So it has a default pipeline, and it will run all the steps on the text one by one. So you can get all the outputs from there in a single step. And you can also control like which options, which particular operations to run. So you have the independence, but if you don't specify anything, it will return you many things. And just a few examples is, so if you have this text and you run this NLP processor on, so first you need to load the English Core Web Small. So this is the default package that they give, and this has the definition for all the various feature extractors that you require for English. And there are many other models for better algorithms and also for other languages. So you just can go to the Spacie's website and look up what are the models available. So we'll use this EN Core Web Small, and we'll load this as NLP pipeline. So from there, if you pass any sentence to this NLP pipeline, it will return you an object which we are calling doc. And this doc is a iterable. So you can basically write a for loop over this doc. So if you do for token in doc, it will return each token of the sentence. But not only that, it will return also many features, like it will give you what is the text of the token, what is the lemma. So lemma is the lemmatized version, POS is the parts of speech tag. Then there are many other things like the dependency, whether it is alphanumeric, like is it like full caps, is it a stop word, and there are many other features. So these are a few examples only. So in this case, we'll print for this example sentence. I will give you this many cents if this tokenizer work, and we are printing a few of the properties that we are getting from this NLP pipeline. So if you can see that the first one is text, then it is processing each of these words into more features. So it will give you what is the POS tag of that, and it will also give you the lemmatized version if it is possible. And it can give you also the dependency parsing here. So it will tell you which particular is the subject and which are the objects of the sentence. Okay, so here is another example. So this is to show you example for the lemmatization. So here you can see that the lemmatization works for this word, going becomes go. So you can use this to speed up your development process where you don't want to implement the NLTK features one by one. So now that we have seen this Spacie toolkit, we want to use this on the data frame that we loaded. So how can we do that? So the data frame is structured in a way that you can access them by each row or each column. And how do you do that? So for that, there is a function called apply. So you can do any data frame name dot apply, and that will let you run a particular function on each of the rows or each of the columns. So that is controlled by this axis argument. If you give axis equal to 1, it will apply to each row individually, or if you give 0, it will apply to each of the columns. And this is the function. So you have to give a name of the function that you want to apply to each of the rows. So this is how you write this function. You need to keep the argument always as row, because it will pass this as row when axis is 1. So you need to start from row, and from there you extract the sentence. So if you remember, our table was structured in a way that the text of the tweet was in the text field. So when we are getting this row object through this apply function, this row will have a text entry within this. So we can get the sentence by accessing row text. And after that, you apply the Spacie NLP pipeline that will give you this doc object. And from there, here we are extracting the tokens only. Okay, now this function works on a single row. And if you want to run it on all the rows, you just do token train data.apply and pass the function name. And once you run this, it will return you this array object. So this is an array, just a different way of viewing. And this array is showing what is the index of that row and what is the tokenized version. So you can see that now the sentences have become tokenized from the original data frame. So here no comma them, recognize them. So these are the individual tokens that it has detected, the specified pipeline. So if you apply now, if you run this function, what you are getting is an array. Now you might want to add this new column to your data frame itself. So you can do that simply by train data tokens and you call this apply function. So whatever row or column it is getting as return item, it will add that to this data frame object. So this is shown here. So we try to get another object. So for this, we are applying again with this num tokens function. What num tokens function is doing, it is taking row. And the tokens object that we got earlier, it is doing a len of those row objects, row tokens objects. So these tokens that we extracted, so this each individual entry is an array. So if you do len of row tokens, it will get the length of these individual entries. So, to run. Okay, so now now we have assigned two new columns, tokens and num tokens. Now you can see that these appears in the original data frame also. So you can continue to do such operations to extract more and more features. And once you have done that, you can use these individual features to create a say classifier or some algorithm to predict what should be the target. So you can assume that you start with these tokens. You first tokenize the sentence, you get these tokens and find out what are the important words towards this target, towards detecting this target of disaster detection. And you can find out these important words from these tokens, so they become your features, and using this data frame you can classify and create another column which is basically the predictions. Okay, so now the third tool. So the third tool is something called Seaborn. So what this does is this allows you to plot or visualize any sort of data, and all the default types of plots that you might want to plot, like a bar plot or a histogram, these things are already inbuilt. Or even plotting like simple functions of a particular argument, these things are already inbuilt. So on the data frame that we got here, what we will do is we'll try to do some plots on these attributes that we extracted. So the first one, we are saying we import Seaborn as this Seaborn package as SNS, and after that we are doing a sns.dist plot. So what this dist plot will do, it will return you a histogram or a distribution plot of the input array that you give. So here we are giving train data.num tokens. So that is this particular column num tokens, and this has the length of each tweet that you see in the dataset. And if you do a dist plot of this particular array, what it will do is it will try to find out which length of tweet occurs how many times within the dataset. So it will try to build a probability distribution over that, and that is what is shown here. So this x-axis is the length of tweet, and y-axis tells what percentage of the data was having that much length within the dataset. So as you can see that the two modes occur around length 10 to 12 and another is 20 to 22. So this is the length of most of the tweets that are there, and there are few which has long lengths like 50. And using these kind of plots, you can decide what should be the maximum length of the sentences that you need to tokenize into. For example, in this case, you can consider a length of say 30 or 35, and you can build your classifier to only consider those many words. You will see as you go ahead in machine learning, go ahead towards more complicated machine learning problems, these documents or text can become very big, and you might want to trim your input text to certain lengths only. Okay, so now here we saw using the num tokens, basically how to plot plot a histogram of these lengths of tweets. Then in the next step, we'll see how to get some statistics on the words that appear in these tweets and whether they can be meaningful, these statistics. Okay, so first we import a particular package called counter. So what counter allows you to do, it can take in any array and it can tell how many times a particular entry occurs within the dataset. So it's basically counts the instances within an array. So we start with the all words empty array. Then we go over each row of the data frame. So this iter rows function allows you to loop over a data frames each row. And this is what is happening. So when you do iter rows, you get I comma row. I is the index, row index, and row is the actual row. So once you get get to that point, you can again access each of the rows fields through this access index access. So you do row text and you pass it through the Spatie NLP tool to get the doc. And from there, we will now use more features for this. So first we will do whether the target is 1. So we are only trying to see the positive classes of the dataset. So this is the first filter that we'll only consider those sentences which were positive tweets. Then we do if not token dot is stop. So we'll not consider the stop word. So we are removing the stop words. And again, then we are doing and not token dot is punct. So we'll not consider the punctuation also. And after that, we add all these tokenized words into the all word after this filter. It has passed through this filter. So this is giving us words which appear in the positive tweets, positively marked tweets, and we are not considering stop words and punctuation. So this constitutes our all words array. After that, we count all the words and we see what are the most common ones. So this counter object gives you a most common array, most common function, which allows you to see the most frequent words in this list. So if you see, there are words like killed, Hiroshima, fire. So this might have been around some event which was happening in some Hiroshima or some fire. Fire is a usual scenario of disaster, and killed is also associated with disaster tweets. So it returns those. So now we can see, so we want to see a few more cases of this. So we can plot this also. So you create a data frame out of this. So you take this dcounts array and you filled in these words and counts from this counter object that you got, and we create a data frame out of it. Okay, so we are taking the most common 20 and creating the data frame out of it. So you can again do this head function. You can again apply this head function on dcounts to see how the data frame looks now. So we started from this counter and we got to this data frame, and we can now use Seaborn to again plot this data frame as a bar plot. So this will allow you to see what are the most frequent words in this sort of disaster tweets. So as you can see, killed, Hiroshima, fire, California, nuclear, suicide, bombers, Saudi, floods. So these are the most associated tweets, most associated words with this disaster type tweets. Okay, so that concludes my part. So if you have any question, you can ask.
Hello.
Yeah.
I have one doubt in a Spatie cell. Spatie cell. Sorry, Spatie.
Okay. Which cell?
The cell where you are importing a Spatie and then printing the output.
Okay. This one.
That part. No. It's Seaborn. I am talking about Spatie. After pandas.
Right. Okay.
Like in line number 7 where you have written print, and in braces you have written :20, :20, :10. So what's the use of colon there?
Right. So you might be aware of formatting in C. So in C, what you do is %d to print a integer, or you can do %4d to print a 4-digit integer, right? So this is how you format in Python. So this is one of the ways. So you can tell that there are 4 fields. So each of the curly braces is denoting a field. And then you can tell the size of these individual fields. So this is saying that print the first field and take 20 characters for it. So this first object, that is the first word that is printed, so it is spanning over these 20 spaces, and whatever how many ever character it needs, and it will fill the rest of them with spaces. And once you do that, you can use dot format and pass the individual fields that are there. So there must be 4 fields here also, because we have mentioned that there will be 4 fields in the formatting string.
What will happen if we remove colon in under printed statement?
Okay, so this colon is required when you are giving the format. If you remove the colon, it will try to interpret this 20 as a string itself or object itself. Okay, so this colon is required to split the object from the formatting. So this 20 is saying that the 20 is the length of the word that you need to use.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you want to exactly see what will happen, I can try on. So it will probably say that there is a mismatch in argument. Yeah, tuple index out of range. So it is treating this 20 as a string. So it is not able to see like there are more objects here than there are like curly braces here. So it is not able to match. Okay.
Okay, it's clear now. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, thanks Rajdeep and Vishal for giving this demo. I hope all the students have found it helpful, and this is also available to you. And you can you can start and do things like, okay, I want to verify whether Gibbs law works on this data set. You can try that with this code and take a data set and see whether Gibbs law holds, right? So yeah, and if there are questions, you can ask us or now or later. So good. So what is the plan next? So Vishal, Rajdeep, do you want to tell anything regarding the kind of task we are thinking for shared task?
Yes, sir.
Sure. So yeah, Rajdeep, you want to tell?
Okay.
So
yeah.
before you start, is there any question regarding the admin part of that? So as we said, we will form teams of size 5, and 5. If somebody cannot find team of size 5, they may have 4 people. That is all right. So we will try to form teams of size 5. Any issue with that? We saw a question that what about forming teams of size 6? So yeah, if we allow 6, there may be a question for 7. So yeah, we have to restrict at some point. Anybody facing serious issues with teams of size 5? Okay, so sure. So I hope you have started forming the groups. Today after the class, we will share a spreadsheet or some way you can tell us your groups. What is the group ID and what are the students there? So yeah, so we will share that. We will give you time so you form your groups, and then we will also give you some time so that you can see which of the shared tasks you would want to participate in. And of course, many of things would be new, so do not worry. You can, if you don't know which one to choose anything randomly. Does not matter. Okay. So I think fine. Yeah, Rajdeep, you can then tell.
Okay. Sure. So I will share my screen. So I hope it is visible to everyone.
Yes, Rajdeep.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. So we have planned to ask you to participate in one of the 3 tasks in SEMIVAL 2021. It is the annual international workshop on semantic evaluation. There are several tasks, out of which we have pinpointed 3. So the first task would be task 1. This is one of the tasks that we would offer you to participate in. The task is regarding lexical complexity prediction. Okay. Now, what is the task? Okay. So now, so you can we will be sharing this link. So let me share the link with everyone first. You can open the link at your end. Okay, now for participating in this task, you can follow the instructions. You have to fill out the form, and you can check the call for participation for more information. Okay, usually the challenges are hosted on CodaLab. It's a website where you will be given with a platform to submit your codes. It's not a coding platform exactly. It will provide you a platform to submit your codes, and there will be a leaderboard where you can check your scores. Okay, so let me go to that page. It is available. Yes. So this is the CodaLab website. So you can see that this is the codalab.org, and this is the competition ID, the task ID for this task. So for the task lexical complexity prediction. So let us go to the task first. So what is it? You will be given a text. Okay. Now from that text, you will be given some tokens. So there are 2 subtasks for this. Okay. In subtask 1, you will be given a token which is a part of that sentence. Okay. Now from the context of the sentence, you have to identify, you have to build a classifier. Okay. Or is it a regression? Sorry, you have to build a regressor. Okay, where you have to give a score of lexical complexity. That means how complex or how difficult it is to understand the sense of that word given the context of the sentence. Okay, so in majority of the cases, you can, I mean, for yourself, you can check the training data. The training data is already available. Okay, so for each sentence, you will be given one word, which might be an abstract word, an abstract sense. Okay, and from the context of the sentence, you have to understand how difficult it is to understand the sense or the meaning of that word. Okay, that is subtask 1. And subtask 2, the word will be replaced by a multi-word span. Okay, a multi-word expression. That is again a part of that same sentence. So in subtask 1, you have to find out the meaning of one single word given the context of the sentence, given the sentence. And in the second subtask, you have to understand the complexity of the multi-word expression given the sentence. So these are the 2 tasks. And for this, in the annotation, when you check the training data, the values, the ground truth values are basically a score, which is between 0 and 1. 0 being very easy and 1 being very hard. It's a continuous score, a float, basically floating point expression. Okay, between 0 and 1. Okay, so if you read this sentence, then you will see that there's they are following a 1 to 5 point scale, where 1 means it is very easy. Sorry, yeah, 1 means it is very easy, and 5 means, sorry, 1 means very difficult and 5 means very easy. That you have to check, I mean, which is what. But in the annotations, if you check, then they have normalized this between 0 and 1. So your score, the final score that will come out of your regressor for a particular word or for a particular multi-word expression would be a score between 0 and 1. So this will be one of the tasks. Okay, let us go to the next task. Or do you have any questions here? So everything, yeah.
Sir, can you give an example of a sentence and a word?
Sure. I mean, for that, just a moment. I will have to go to the GitHub page. Just a moment. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for example, this is the sentence. Consider the third sentence. Okay. And they entered into the boat and were going over the sea to Capernaum. Right? So this is the sentence. Now the word. Now this is the data set for for the first subtask. That is a single word is given. So you have to train a model to understand the meaning of this word see given this sentence. And the model would predict how difficult it is to understand the meaning of the word see by giving a score between 0 and 1. So this is the ground truth. This is the sentence. This is the token or the target, okay, for which you have to find out the lexical complexity. And this is the complexity score. So I think if it is towards 0, then it is easy. And if it is towards 1, then it is difficult. This is the example. Okay. Yeah. Someone has some question. Tell me.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the data set for the task 1. And if you look at the data set for the multi-word expression.
Can you also show an example of a complex words?
Yes, sir.
Complexity is high.
Yes, I'm showing. So is it visible? Should I increase the font? So let us consider the fourth sentence, maybe. And he burnt incense of sweet spices on it, as Yahweh commanded Moses. Burnt incense. So this burnt incense, where is it? Yes, this is the multi-word expression. This burnt incense. You have to find out the complexity of this burnt incense given the context of the entire sentence. And its score is 0.25. Okay. Now, let us take the first example because its score was 0. So let's see whether it is easy or difficult. The name of one son was Gershom, whatever, for Moses said, I have lived as a foreigner in a foreign land. So foreign land is the multi-word expression for which you have to understand how difficult it is to understand the meaning. So the score is 0. That means it is easy to understand the meaning of this multi-word expression from this sentence. So this is the ground truth trial data for your subtask 2. Okay, this will be the overall task. Lexical complexity prediction and 2 different subtasks. Okay, so is there any other question for this task? Okay, I will then move to the next task in the interest of time. If you have any questions, you can directly ping us. You can ask on Piazza. Okay. So the next task is task 8. Mesh eval, counts and measurements. So let us go. Fine. So I will directly start with some example. Just a moment. So just to get you, familiarized with this platform, you can see that there are different phases, right? So currently it is in the evaluation phase. So you can obviously all the topics have not yet been covered, but don't bother about when the evaluation is ending because the competition will never end. Okay, and we will be able to evaluate your codes till the very end of the course. Okay, so the evaluation has started. By that we mean that if you can write a code, a basic code even, then you can submit on this platform and you can check your result. Okay, so results will come in the form of a leaderboard. So you're not able to see anything. Why? Because there are no submissions still yet. Okay, otherwise your name, entries, how many entries have you made and all that, your team name, etc. Will appear here. Okay, Achha. Then the details, evaluation, how it will be evaluated, and where is the data. So about the data, you can see that here it is mentioned data availability. It will be available in the GitHub repository. Okay, so everything is very well documented on these websites. If you take some time and read through it, then you will be able to understand. Okay, having said that, let us go to the task. So here, is this example visible? So, okay, I think yes, right? Okay, so let me take this example. However, some elements are only present for the largest bed inventory of 13 kg. Fine. So from this sentence, you have to understand which parts of the sentence or which spans inside the sentence are actually trying to tell you some measurements and quantities. Okay, so the ground truth annotation for this sentence would be 13 kg is the value. Okay, 256 to 261, this is nothing but the start character position of 1, and 261 is the end position character of G. So if you read through the entire sentence, then 1 is going to start at 256th position. This is the character positions, and 261 is the end position. So this is the entire span that you have to detect. Okay, and its type is quantity. Fine. So quantity 256 to 261 and 13 kg. This is one annotation available for the sentence. What is the other annotation? So this bed inventory. Now bed inventory, again, its starting position will be 239 and ending position will be 252. The start and the end character positions. Okay, this is the actual value. And what is its type? Measured entity. So these types are predefined. Okay, you have to build a classifier in order to understand the span that you have currently detected. What is the type of that span? So this will be a classification task. Okay, once you have identified the span and the value. Okay, Achha. Then this has quantity is actually a relation. So once you have already identified the first two things, that means the quantity and the measured quantity, the actual quantity and the measured quantity, what is being measured. After you have identified these two, then you have to identify the relationship between them. That means bed inventory has the quantity 13 kg. So this has quantity is a relation. Again, it is a predefined relation, and this will be a classification task. So once you have identified the two targets, then you have to identify the relationship between them. Fine. So this will be the annotation for this sentence. Now let's check the next sentence. However, all elements, so you can understand elements is something which is being measured. All elements included within figure 5 can be considered to be at very low concentrations. This is the actual property. Now comes a different type. So earlier we have seen measured entity and quantity. Okay, now measured property is the third type, and then less than 2 ppm. Okay, now let's check the annotations for this sentence. So first, as you can see, quantity 383 to 389 and less than 2 ppm is the actual value. And then concentrations, the span, measured property. Fine. Then the relationship between this and this, that means T2 and T4. What is the relationship? Has quantity. So I think this there's something wrong. This should be T2 and T4 instead of T3, T1. Okay, so this will be has quantity. Fine. And then elements. Elements is another entity which is called the measure, which is being referred to as the measured entity. This is the third type. Okay. And then what are the other relations? So has property, right? So elements has the property concentrations. So you can see that elements. So T6 was elements, right? T6 is elements, and T4 was concentrations. So between elements and concentrations, the relationship is has property. Okay. Now it will be better. Fine. And then has quantity. So which has, so okay, T4 and T2. So this one. So I think you can ignore this. So T4 and T2, between T4 and T2, that means concentrations is less than 2 ppm. This is again has quantity relationship. So all these relationships and these types are predefined. And for this two particular tasks, you have to build a classifier. Okay, so this is the example of sentences and their annotations. Okay, and the final annotation is range. So the identified quantity, now what kind of quantity it is? Is it a range? Is it a fixed value? Okay, so that is another classification task. So if there are no questions on the annotation or how the annotations are being set up for each sentence, then I will go to the tasks. So if there are any questions on this page, let me know before I move on to the actual tasks, what you have to do. Fine. Then let me show you the tasks. So there are 5 subtasks for this entire task, right? So for each paragraph of text, identify all the quantity spans. So this is your first task. You have to identify all the quantity spans. So by quantity spans means 13 kg and less than 2 ppm. Only these two. If you can identify these two, your task is done. I mean, the subtask 1 is done. Okay. Then subtask 2, for each identified quantity, identify the unit of measurement if one exists. For each identified quantity, classify additional value modifiers, count, range, approximate, mean, etc. that apply to the quantity. So this is what I was mentioning, that whether it is count, that is 13 kg, or whether it is range, that is less than 2 ppm. Okay, this is the second subtask. So once you have identified the quantity span, then you have to build a classifier in order to understand what is the kind of quantity span, whether it is count, whether it is range, whether it is mean. If suppose there is a word average, then you will have to understand that, okay, then it must be a mean. Okay, so this is subtask 2. Subtask 3, for each identified quantity, identify the measured entity. Okay, so for this too, you have to understand that you have to extract out bed inventory and concentrations. This is subtask 3. What is being measured? That is what you have to identify in subtask 3. Okay, fine. And yeah, the types are predefined. So if an associated measured property also exists, identify it and mark its span as well. Okay. So yes, I mean, obviously you have to understand that everything is span detection. So you have to identify, extract the span. Okay. Then fourth is identify and mark the span of any qualifier that is needed to record additional related context to either validate or understand each identified quantity. So in this example, there was no qualifier. So if we can probably we can give you some more examples later from the trial data, but there is no qualifier here. Okay. Subtask 4, but let me finish the subtask 5, then we will tell you the important thing. And the final is the relationship identification. Okay, so once the quantity and measured entity and the measured property, all these things have been extracted out, then you have to identify what kind of relationship exists between the various identified entities. So this will be your subtask 5. So this sums up all the subtasks under this. Now, your compulsory tasks will be, for this task, the compulsory tasks will be subtask 1 and subtask 3. Okay, subtask 1 and subtask 3. These are the two subtasks on which you will be graded upon. Fine. If you are forming a team of 5, the moment you form a team of 6, then subtask 5 will also be graded. Is it clear? If you are forming a team of 5, then you will be graded only on subtask 1 and subtask 3. If you are forming a team of 6, then subtask 5 also becomes compulsory. We will not grade you on subtask 2 and 4, but you are always welcome to write code for that if you want to check your scores on the leaderboard. Right? So 1 and 3 if there is a team of 5. 1, 3, and 5 if there is a team of 6. Any questions? Any questions till now? Okay, I will then request Vishal to please tell them about task 11.
Sure. Just give me a minute to open.
Yes, yes.
Hi. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Right. So the final task, task 11, is about extracting information from scientific literature texts. So what do you mean by scientific literature? Basically, you have various publication venues which publishes conference or journal papers as PDFs, and they have certain structures, they have a certain way of writing the text, and also they have domain specific sentences. So they are not like standard English sentences. So what this task involves is you have to extract information from these scientific texts. So these are usually papers in this for this subtask. And you can imagine from a particular paper's PDF, you have to extract from the introduction section, what are the contributions, from the methodology section, what are the various tools or technologies that are used, what sort of models they are building. From results section, you have to extract the various numbers that might be there. So these are the various things you have to extract, and this in general falls under the information extraction umbrella. There are a few examples. I will tell you about the examples. But first, there are 3 steps. So the first step is contribution sentences. So you have to extract certain sentences from the whole document. So you cannot possibly like analyze each sentence and build a graph of that. So that doesn't become very informative if you have all the information. So you want to find out some sentences in the PDF which are most salient, which are most informative. So that is the contribution sentence extraction part. Second is scientific term and predicate phrases from the sentences. So what this says is, once you have identified these important sentences, you want to extract phrases from that sentence, which are most probably some entity or some noun phrases, which will be telling you what are the scientific terms or the subject of that particular sentence, and also what are the predicate phrases. So this tells you what is the object of that sentence and what is the information that sentence is giving about that entity. Okay, so this is, and once you have done that, once you've extracted these various phrases and entities from the individual sentences, you have to create a knowledge graph out of it. So what does this knowledge graph mean? So once you have this triple format for each sentence, so you have subject, predicate, and object. This subject connects to the object through a relation, which is this predicate. So now I'll go to the example. Otherwise, this will be difficult, this last part. So first, we'll look at a few sentences. Sorry, hold on. Okay, so this is what the input txt will look like for your machine, for your algorithm. And what they have done is they have taken a paper. So this is the title of the paper. They have taken this paper and they have split it into sentences using some tokenization algorithm that they have built. But now you have to work with this particular format. So for each line, there might be one or more sentences, but from here you have to identify which are the most important lines in these files. So you might consider a line where the authors are saying, in this paper, we contribute this particular point. So this is a salient line which is talking about the contribution of the whole paper. Okay, so this is the input and you have to start extracting sentences from here. And if you see, the first output file is this sentences. So this is saying that lines 16, 17, and these are the lines in that file, this input file, which are important as per their annotations. So these are the sentences that you have to finally extract from this whole paper, which is a large paper. Once you have extracted these sentences, you have to extract the entities. Okay, so here, so this is how the entity file will look like. And what this each entry tells is this 16 is the ID of, not exactly, this is type ID of the entity. So all these 16 are entity type, say method name, and these can be mathematical terms, these 18. So these are talking about the types of the entities. And once you have extracted the type of the entity, the next two are giving you the range within the range in which they have detected that particular entity. And finally, this is the span, the neural network architecture. So they basically went into those sentences, and in one sentence they found out this this particular entity within this span, and it has a type ID of this. So in this case, there might be methodology or result type. So for or a model type, so a model can be say a NLTK, a toolkit, species, a toolkit. So this can be a toolkit type. And there can be terms like p-value, accuracy. These are methodology related or statistics types entities. So these are the types. So this first column. So this is your second output file after you have extracted the sentences and entities. And then you have a triples file. So what this triples file will do, this is the part where you build the knowledge graph. So once you have these sentences marked and the entities marked within the sentences, you will have to categorize each of these first into sections. So these are the sections in the paper, and within each section, you have to create a relation linking to create a graph. So these are the entities. So this is the subject, contribution, and baselines is the object, and has is the relation. So what is this is saying? Ki contribute. So here these two are entities. This contribution and baselines are the entities that you detected, and this is the relation that you are putting between these two entities. So again, from baseline, you have another relation which is going to this Moses algorithm. So this is an algorithm, and they are saying baselines is built using Moses. So you can see that it is starting to build up a graph. So contribution is the first node which links to baselines. And from baseline, you have a link going out to Moses. And again, from Moses to you are going out to another node, which is default settings, right? And these are the relations in between. So you have to build a graph this way. So we can go to another file. So now for this model section, so this is the subgraph that have been extracted from this section of the paper. So here again, so this will be a more complex graph because you have more entities, and you will probably have more disjoint subgraphs also. So these again are the entities. So we saw contribution and model. So jointly is approach term specific to machine learning. So this jointly conditional probability is a loss function. So you can see that these are the various entities that have been extracted, and now we are linking up the entities using these relations. And all of these things that you are seeing, this RNN encoder decoder, neural network architecture, these are all phrases from the sentences that you have detected. So you don't have to generate anything new here. You just have to use the text that are there in the sentence to mark which particular span of those text are object or some entity, or it is a subject, or it can be a relation also. So these relation words are also coming in from the text itself. So all these things you extract from the text, and once you have done that, you have to link them up to create a graph structure out of it. Okay, so this is a knowledge graph building out of scientific literature. So this is task 11. Okay, so if you have any question, you can ask.
So Vishal, I think we discussed that even for this task, the first two will be compulsory if the
So
team
right.
size is.
Yeah,
Please mention.
sorry. So for this task also, we are considering the first two tasks as compulsory. You only have to work on these two tasks towards the grade of the project, but there is no compulsion on whether you have to work on or not work on 3. If you want, you can also work on 3 to get a place on leaderboard, but only the first two are compulsory for the class.
If the team size is 6, then we are considering all the 3 tasks.
Yeah. So for that, the rule is kind of same, and also we are not considering the task 1 if you have a team size of 6, because we need more tasks for that. So if you use team size of 6, only task 8 and task 11 are options, and you have to do the 3 tasks for team size 6. Otherwise, only the 2 tasks that have been mentioned, you can work on that with team size of 5 or less. And we'll also put up these details. Yeah. So we'll also put up these details in a doc.
Yeah, we will put up these details on the Piaja, so as Rajdeep mentioned. So we will put the tasks and what are the compulsory and what are optional things. So that we will put up on Piaja. So, so these 3 tasks, as we said, we try to identify some problems that are not so much worked on, and there will be scope for you to do something based on whatever you have learned during the course. Okay, so you have to form the teams and go for the task that you feel interested in, and we will give you some timelines, right? So that we will also notify. What are the timelines when you have to form the team? What are the timelines when you have to complete the task and submit? So those timelines we will put up on Piaja. Anything else?
There will be a naming convention to be followed for the
Yeah,
team names.
we will mention that. Yeah. We will mention naming convention.
You can, so students are encouraged to look at the tasks, but at the moment, please do not register or form a team formally, because we will give you the exact, the convention in which you have to name your teams so that you form the teams accordingly.
Sir, can you open a team sheet for the groups so that we can find out any vacancies in the groups, or like find out people who are not in, like whose group has not formed, and form appropriate groups?
So we will have a spreadsheet shared with all of you where people will form groups. Okay, so that we will do them. And you have the list of all the students that we have shared. So I think that should suffice. Okay, anything else? Sure. So we are just getting started. So then, yeah, we will share the lectures for this week and we will meet next week. Please keep posting if there are any queries on Piaja. Okay, thanks again, Vishal and Razi, for very nice presentations. Okay, thanks.